Coming up in this video, ultimately I began hearing a man's voice behind the scenes. I shouted hi 2 additional times into the telephone, and afterward I unmistakably heard a young lady's shout, "Help me," before the call was hung up. Hey guys, I just wanted to say if you are a fan of scary stories and horror videos, then you are in the right place. So in this video we will see Snapchat horror stories and true scary stories. It was 2016. My younger sibling and I, along with a couple of her companions, were setting up camp in the woods in Maine. I proved unable to let you know the name of it. She needed me to go because I'm more seasoned, and that's just the beginning. Experienced with setting up camp. Yet was it bizarre setting up camp with a lot of 14-year-old young ladies. Yes, I will not share my sister's name, yet her companions were Kate, Jennifer, and Laura. My sister demanded I dozed in a different tent than she and her companions, and I was good with that, so we brought 2 tents alongside that I stuffed the typical setting up camp supplies, food, water, devices, and for my situation a rifle. I generally take a weapon with me while setting up camp, since I'm a neurotic person. What's more, I generally need to feel safeguarded while in the forest. At the night following a drawn-out day, I helped the young ladies set up their tents, and afterward I dealt with mine alone as they were all sitting in theirs meddling or talking about whatever 14-year-old young ladies discuss. When I completed, I put the fire out. Being the more seasoned sibling, I of the course felt liable for my sister, furthermore her companions, so I moved the tent truly near theirs, turned on my light, and proceeded where I left off in the book. I was perusing the babbling of the young ladies in the following tent. Over was a piece diverting. At one point, I heard them discussing a specific kid. Then the discussion changed to Snapchat. I heard Jane reference that she didn't have Laura on Snapchat and requested her username. I truly didn't intend to snoop, yet they were talking pretty noisy. Jane gave Laura her snap, and about 5 to 10 minutes after the fact, Laura referenced in a confounded voice that some arbitrary individual included her Snapchat. I raised my head for my book apiece as my interest in the thing was being said abruptly expanded. Different young ladies told Laura to add the individual to see who. It was a couple seconds after the fact they were ranting about how the individual Snapchat score was so low, just like 9. I was truly focusing now. The individual communicated something specific, saying howdy, send me a tick, and afterward 4 of them left right now. They were somewhat murmuring and laughing, so I couldn't genuinely hear information exchanged. However, after they generally howled uncontrollably, I did figure they sent some sort of entertaining picture. After more quietness, I got chills when I heard all of them scream. I snatched my weapon and ran outside to their tent. My sister shouted that there was somebody beyond the tents. I fired the firearm into the air multiple times as an advance notice, shouting into the forest simultaneously. I then crept into their tent, where my sister embraced me. I asked what happened to Imagine, as I didn't know half of it from tuning in to their discussion, and they made sense of everything. Laura added the arbitrary individual back, who then sent her the message referenced prior. As I thought, she sent back an monstrous gathering shot with her companions. The individual then sent back an image. In the reaction, there was a selfie picture of what they portrayed as an old unpleasant fella grinning at the camera standing directly before their tents. It gave me chills directly down, deep down. Paying attention to their story, I was cracked out myself. They generally believed I should rest in the tent with them that evening, so I did the following morning. We cut the excursion short and went straight for the vehicle. What might have been an extraordinary end of the week memory with my sister transformed into the greatest bad dream of both of our lives. Scarcely use Snap. I view it as an juvenile structure of correspondence. I just have one so I can get snaps from companions, sometimes send individual snaps while I'm holiday someplace or following through with something fun. I don't see Snapchat as a reasonable swap for basically messaging somebody. That being said, when this young lady Jane that I hadn't heard in months what my identity was sort of into one night arbitrarily snapped me, my face illuminated a piece. She snapped me a picture in a dim room, her room getting out "Whatever is you're doing," I answered with an off-kilter selfie saying, "Watching companions," made more off-kilter with the unpalatably splendid blaze from my telephone. Another explanation: I disdain Snapchat because I looked horrible in selfies, anticipating that she should pursue away my selfie. She snapped back. I could scarcely make out a piece of her face. It was 90 dark any place. She was with a clue of red shine. She said in the snap to come to her place. I was finished with the moronic selfies, so I just informed her back asking where. She sent a location. It was 10 minutes away. I was exhausted. So what difference would it make? I kicked my Chevy off following towards the location. It wasn't so much that far. I was there speedier than anticipated, but on the other hand, I'm a fast driver. The location was a house at the edge of a similar town I live in. Since I have her number, I just messaged her, yet with my vehicle sitting and her not noting immediately, I chose to simply call her. The call was replied. However, she didn't say anything on the opposite end. All I heard was distorted. As a matter of fact, foundation, commotion, likely because the telephone was replied coincidentally. I made proper acquaintance a couple of times, trusting perhaps she'd hear me in her back pocket or any place her telephone could have been. I tuned in for a brief period. Ultimately, I began hearing a man's voice behind the scenes. I shouted hi 2 additional times into the telephone, and afterward I unmistakably heard a young lady's shout, "Help me," before the call was hung up. I didn't have the foggiest idea what to think about all that. I messaged her once again about what's happening. Minutes after the fact, I got a text back saying, "Come in." I just opened the front entryway. I checked out at the house and adequately sure the front entryway was left open at this point. Simultaneously, I got one more snap from Jane. I opened it quickly. It was an image of her legs in a dim room. She was wearing torn pants, and it appeared as though she was perched on the floor. Something wasn't here. I wasn't going in that house. I called 911. Meanwhile, while hanging tight for the cops, I messaged back the number saying, "1 second, I'm on a call in. At that point, I'll come right in." Yet, there was no response the following time. I took a gander at the front entryway of the house. It was shut at this point. I was stressed that what I was envisioning was working out as expected. The cop vehicle at last pulled up behind my vehicle, and I pointed them at the house. One more cop vehicle pulled up rapidly across the road, and 2 additional police got out. A sum of 4 police were thumping at the front entryway. A man opened the entryway, and they recognized that they got revealed. Grabbing in the house, one of the cops let himself into the house past the man. The other 2 followed, while one stood with me by the entryway. Not so much as after 30 seconds, one of the cops hollered at the other 2 to get him in handcuffs, and afterward, a young lady weeps for help soon became evident from the storm cellar. I was in outright shock when the young lady I perceived as Kate was being accompanied out of the house in tears. She was in a disaster area. She seemed as though she just encountered an extraordinary injury. I couldn't envision this wasn't even her home. This was the man's house. In any case, the young lady's auntie didn't live excessively far, so she was brought there. The man was taken to prison. What's more, I'm certain he's presently in jail. That young lady truly didn't appear to need to converse with me a lot past saying thanks to me for saving her life a bundle of times. I'm not distraught about it, however I get it. Encountering anything she went through in that cellar is presumably something nobody needs to ponder. Hi guys, before you keep watching the video, if you want to send a personal true horror story of yours, please send it to me on my email, and I will contact you for sure. Also, don't forget to keep watching your video. This was not so much as a month prior, so every one of the little subtleties is still new to me. I have been utilizing dating applications on and off for quite a long time. I think Tinder sucks, along with its client support, and I was never an enthusiast of Pivot. I primarily use Bumble. In my Bumble bio, I have my level, which is 411. I make a kid about being short, and afterward, I have my Instagram and Snap at the bottom. Due to that, I get a good measure of irregular follow demands. On Instagram, a fraction of the time I don't follow them back. I likewise get a ton of irregular individuals adding me on Snap, presumably more on there than on Instagram. I generally possibly add them back if I perceive their name from a new discussion on Bumble, or the other hand, if their Bitmoji looks pretty typical. I realize that sounds bizarre. I manage a parcel of moronic, appalling young men on a Bumble. In any case, it's not generally so awful as kindling. I'll frequently have the ordinary douche college kid inquiring as to whether I do hookups or send any sort of provocative messages. Normally when that happens, I'll meddle with them a tad and afterward unmatch them. This one time I surmised 3 right around 4 weeks prior. I matched this pretty alluring person. He sent some thoughtful pickup line of inventive and stood out. Pretty soon he requested my snap, then seconds after the fact he added me. After taking note, in any case, I had my snap in my profile, so I added him back, since why not. He begun informing me on Snap. I screenshotted the initial 2 singles out his Bumble profile and sent it to my sweethearts, referencing how appealing he is. My companion Jana answered immediately, saying, "It's a catfish." She matched it as well, so I concluded I'd wreck with them a smidgen. The things he was informing me on Snap were gradually advancing to be more sexual, so I began saying the most ugly things conceivable, and they begun getting observably pungent. I said I would be down to come over if they sent me a selfie. He didn't send a selfie, he just answered with a message asking what my location is. I didn't answer at first, asking my young ladies what I ought to do straight away. However, at that point, I got a notice that the fellow screenshotted my Snapchat profile. I promptly hindered him and recollected I had my area on the Snap map as public. The issue is the houses in my space are scattered enough where he could undoubtedly distinguish which house I was in. I overreacted by asking my sweethearts what to do. They attempt to quiet me down by guaranteeing me there was no way he'd come to my house. They worked effectively because they made me acknowledge how ludicrous I'm coming to my house sounded. I was observing a new young lady on Netflix. Doorbell out of nowhere rang. They stopped the show and I felt my heart hop into my throat. I was home alone, not expecting my guardians or kin. Furthermore, it was past 10. I switched off my room light and television screen. I believed absolute haziness should give the deception. Nobody was home. I out of nowhere got a notice that somebody included me Snap. The username was "It's me, add me back." I obstructed the record right away. After 2 minutes, another record added me on Snap. This one the username was "I'm outside your home." I screenshotted that and sent it to my companions. The family is currently in tears. I obstructed it too. There was a long stop now. I trusted perhaps he had quit any pretense of during. At that time, I was messaging companions and family, however, disregarding the entirety of their calls, since I was suspicious to such an extent that I'd be heard from outside. At long last, I got one more feared warning from Snap, saying somebody added me this time. The username said, "I'm checking you out." I go to the window normally. I wish I hadn't. I wish I just ran out of the room and called 911. Yet, I looked and saw him investigating my room. This sickening, grinning man, I'm certain my face turned spooky white as I checked him out. I ran out of the whole house shouting as loud as possible down the road. 2 neighbors came outside accordingly. Furthermore, I fundamentally ran into one of their arms, sobbing for help. The neighbor called the police for me. However, the man was not viewed as in or around the house. In some way or another needed to accumulate the boldness to return into that house and remain there for the evening. I secured myself in my folks' room, since it's the main room higher up with a lock. Also, I supplicated I'd have the option to nod off. However, I just alert for apparently hours. Furthermore, at last, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt. I heard something outside the entryway, like minuscule delicate strides causing ever so slight breaks in the wood. I sat up and gazed at the lower part of the entryway, fearing the lights outside turning on or somebody attempting to open the entryway. I snatched my phone and dialed 911. I quickly shared this with the administrator in a calm murmur that somebody was inside my house and I was distant from everyone else. However, perhaps I didn't say it unobtrusively enough, since strides on the opposite side of the entryway affirmed that I was correct. I wasn't simply hearing things. The strides left the entryway rapidly. I heard them go down the steps and At last, I heard the front Tempest entryway forcibly closed. Cops showed up right away. Similar police had returned. This time they wouldn't permit me to rest there the remainder of the evening. I called my companion Jana, who was still conscious, and she said I could come rest over until the end of the week. The police accompanied me there after I secured my home. I'm appreciative I didn't nod off that night, as I could never have heard those minuscule strides outside my room. Also, I probably won't have called the police in time. Enough is enough for today, guys. Bye.